Do you remember the Shadowman clan back in Warlords of Draenor? The alternative orc clan led by Ner'zhul himself had gone a pretty different path from our reality. As a shamanistic clan which mastered reading the messages of stars and visions, they led it to the silent void. How could this happen? Do shamans tend to succumb to the void just like priests? Does how the Shadow Moon clan handle the void matter? Well, it actually does, and today we will talk about it. Hello, I am Lorfirik here, and today we will talk about the secrets of the void. The story begins with our favorite alternative timeline expansion, Warlords of Draenor. While it was an alternative universe, it was canon, and it still does. Now, in Warlords, after the Iron Horde has been founded by Garrosh and Grommash, they fix their gaze upon the Temple of Karabor, the place that would become the Black Temple in our timeline. Anyways, the Iron Horde came up to Ner'zhul and asked them what they had to offer for their army. Grommash wasn't so impressed about the ability of reading signs from the stars or seeing visions. So he offered their clan a choice: provide something useful for the Iron Horde or perish. And then,
So Ner'zhul turned to the silent void. He broke the ancient laws and drew upon the Dark Star. I pleaded with him to stop, but he would not turn back. By breaking this stone, he forswore all loyalty to our ancestors.
so as you see, Ner'zhul realized the void, but it was very different from the general theme of the void we saw in Azeroth actually. First, Draenor had no Word Soul, so there were no old gods buried beneath it. So instead, Ner'zhul heard the voice from the stars, presumably heard Kara. And Nauru turned to the void, and then he called upon the Dark Star's power, and he and his clan would gain access to void magic, using it to raise undead and fight the Draenei in Shadowmoon Valley for the Iron Horde. What? Raise undead? Wasn't the void and death were two separate powers that could never collide? Wasn't, according to some well-known content creators, that death meant to defeat the void as if they were enemies? No, forget about this nonsense, please. There is no reason between the cosmological forces to not bleed into each other in some way. In Kultiras, the K'tir raised undead to fight for them as well, but that's a topic for another video. So you see, as long as I leveled up in Shadowmoon Valley, I recognized something. That the void we have witnessed in Draenor, how the Shadowmoon clan harnessed the void, was very different from Azeroth. In our world, I mean in Azeroth, the void is more material. It's in the flesh, if you will. How? Due to old gods, of course. Buried beneath Azeroth, they are the manifestations of the void in flesh that gave birth several races, such as the Akir, the insectoid servants of the old gods, mainly serving Khatun, and the Niraki, mainly serving Yogg-Saron and N'Zoth. As you see, the servants of the old gods are made of flesh. They are the void manifested in flesh, unlike the Sha, which were formed by the dying breath of Visharsh. Now, the servants of the old gods, especially the Niraki, commonly known as the Faceless Ones, whisper words of madness and so on, they are still on the material level of the void, at least to me. They still look like regular, monstrous enemies, right? When it comes to Draenor and the Shadow Moon Clan, however, they literally call upon the energy, the spiritual manifestations of the void, into the physical realm through the stars. The void soldiers we encountered in Shadow Moon Valley were wraith-like creatures, and they were horrifying. They were the literal manifestation of darkness, anguish, or whatever negative energy or feeling across the cosmos. Now, during questing throughout the Fortress of Anguish, the main base of operations of the Shadow Moon clan, you would also collect some star reading. A shame it was that we couldn't open and read them though, so the Shadow Moon clan realized that the stars were actually related to the void. Hold on, I know what you are thinking, but hear me for a second. The void, as a term, not as a simple cosmological force, is the nothingness, the emptiness of the universe, right? And what do we have in the great dark beyond? The stars, the celestial energy. The celestial energy, interestingly enough, is closely related with Elun. Also, throughout the quest line, you would complete a quest entitled The Dark Side of the Moon. But I have found out that, well, Elun and Draenor had no special connections. But that was still a good detail to note. But as you see, the celestial energy, or the stars, are located inside the void. Do you remember Star Ogre Atreus? He realized the presence of the Void Lords because he was observing the stars. Also, the Naru are meant to become void when their energy expires. We have seen several examples for this, such as Muru or Lura or Kara from Draenor, which was likely the reason why Ner'zhul heard the whispers of the void in the first place. Do not underestimate the Naru and their power. They can be as dangerous as the old gods themselves, maybe even more. As you see, there are actually two covenants of the void. One, the physical manifestations of the void, the old gods and their servants in flesh, and they are attacking from below. While the other covenant is the energy of the void itself. While the old gods are just servants of the void lords, these manifestations of energy, those shards of the dark star in warlords, were direct manifestations of the void lords themselves. Also, I think the ethereals can be considered as not physical manifestations of the void. They were reduced to raw arcane energy by a void lord, Dionysius himself. So, yeah, I think we can put the ethereals into the spiritual covenant of the void as well. So, before we finish up, can shamans become void shamans? Well, it would seem they can, or at least there is a potential for them to succumb to the void, as we see with Shadow Moon Clan. Also, in Azeroth, considering the old gods are present underneath the earth and sea, and shamans are directly tied with those elements and to the world itself, yes, they are as close to succumbing to the void as priests. And so, as you see, the stars are dangerous. Do not trust to the stars or some celestial goddess. And how about the danger beneath the oceans and earth of Azeroth? Darkness of the ocean, of the abyss and K'tir. Well, that's the topic of our next video in this Void documentary, if you will. That's all for today, and thank you for listening. If you liked my content, please consider dropping a like and subscribe. I am only a couple subscribers away from 100, so that would be a great help. Thanks, and see you next time in the darkest depths of Azeroth.
Drowned in the blood of the infinite.